Everybody, I am filling in for Greg for this conversation, and he always gives me the best author guest, so I'm so excited. So without any other fluff or anything like that, I am Amy, if you don't know who I am, and my lovely author guest is Thorsten Nesch. Is that right? Did I say it right?
That's correct, Amy. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Oh, wonderful. I absolutely love it. So it's my understanding, so you were born in Germany and you speak fluent German, which kudos to you, because it to me just sounds so hard to learn. I studied French and that was hard enough for me. But you are a incredible writer and author. You have won a lot of accolades. You are just amazing. You've written in both German and English and translated vice versa back and forth. So what was that spark that got you interested in becoming a writer, where you kind of were like, I'm going to try this and publish my first novel?
Well, it reached actually way back, like into my childhood. Basically, I did read a lot, but I did read a lot, and then it was a day basically when you go to school and the kids ask, hey, what did you do yesterday? And I was like, hey, Playmobil and stuff, I'm playing. And then it's like, you have that age where that gets cringy. And then when I stopped playing, basically my next go-to for my fantasy was starting writing little short stories. So that's how that started, the initial writing aspect.
So what was the first short story that you wrote?
That's interesting, because I'm now living in Canada, and although being in Germany, having no connection in Canada, my first short story was about a dinosaur that gets awakened in Uranium City in Canada.
Wow! And now you live there. It's like full circle. I love it. So did you ever do anything with your first, short stories and stuff that you wrote, or when was that pivotal moment for you where you're like, I think this is really great, I'm going to try to get this published?
Yeah, so I gave those to my friends in school, and they gave me grades and all that stuff. They were really nice and encouraging. And then you get older, you become later teenager. I got a job in a legal place in insurance, and it didn't feel right. And it took me then another 1 or 2 years. I was in my early 20s, let's say 23, 24, when it was really, I missed writing when I couldn't write. So for me, I always say it was more a lifestyle decision. I decided to work, to buy myself time to write, knowing that I might never be able to live off it, for example, right? And because that's a illusionary hope, of course. And I never regretted it. That's what I did. I was my 23, 24, and then I wrote a novel. I sent it out, and the first one was those anonymous decline, and then the second and the third novel got some attention, but weren't published. But I knew I was on the right track.
See, I have dogs at home and kids, so your background knows. I'm so sorry. I have a 3 and a 2-year-old, and she's learning my speaker for my TV. But so I love that they gave you grades, that they were nice. Like, I feel like if I wrote something and I gave it to my friends, they wouldn't necessarily be that nice. So I love that. And I think having, that interaction with your peers and getting reader critiques and stuff is important, especially as a writer. And I like how you were kind of just like, I really want to do this. And you kind of just made time to do it. I think that's important, and it shows how passionate you are for it. But I want to talk a little bit about, I don't get to encounter very many authors that write in one language and translate into another and vice versa. So what was that process like for you? Was it easier to do it that way, to write in German and then have it translated into English? Or was it just something that you wanted it to be exposed into your, because you speak German and then you started speaking English. So was it something that you wanted both to have, or what was that like for you?
So what they say with translators, you should translate into your native language. So the novels that are translated into English were not translated by me. I had translated, versus the two novels that I wrote in English, one with a colleague from Zimbabwe, Blessing. We both wrote in English, obviously, and sent it back and forth. And the last novel that I currently shop around at publishing houses and agents, I wrote in English from the start. Right. So that I think it's a different process, because otherwise you're always blocked by the grammar of your original language. I did do a translation professional for Bishop Desmond Tutu, the Peace Nobel Prize winner, the one book that he wrote. I was a translator for Germany. So I translated into my original language.
Oh, okay. See, that makes sense. Like, I could see, if English, or like for me, German's not my first language, I would want someone like you to translate it so it was accurate, So that makes sense. So I could understand that, and I think that's probably the best way to do it. So how did you publish your first book? Are you self-published? Are you traditionally published? Are you both? What was that avenue like for you?
Yeah, we go back before internet, switch back. And so I started a literature magazine in my early 20s and got a couple of colleagues, and we published each other, and we organized readings like in pubs, cafes, in public places. And so first it was more like chapbooks. That's what it's called, right? That you put a couple of pages together. And then I got enough money together to have a book printed. But in Germany it would have been too expensive. There were like back then 3,000 Deutschmarks, the old currency. But I had a connection to Slovakia, and there was a printer who could do it for 900, and that is quite less. But it was like this rolls into a story, literature smuggle in the 20th century, because we had to cross the border with the book, and we paid him under the table, right? Like he just printed it, no taxes. And sure enough, we were like two long-haired guys in the car, in a small Japanese car. And because of the 400 books, the trunk, it really sagged at the border, and the German custom officers pulled us over. And what's in there? And then I opened it, it's like full of books, and he says it's all books. So I had to open a couple of them. The irony is, like, because I printed my own book, I felt entitled to put my own face on the front cover. So I looked at him. I looked from the books at him. Obviously, I wasn't lying. He just scratched his head, and I bet he said, he's seen worse at a border crossing after the wall came down, right?
I'm sure.
He's like, guys, close the trunk and keep driving. He didn't charge us, because I didn't have the papers, and I'm pretty sure the man told that story too.
That's a great story, though, of like, going through the whole like leaps and bounds and avenues to publish your first book and going to get it, plugging it in. And it was obviously yours if your face is on the cover, right?
Yeah, lucky me.
No question. So I've never heard that. And that is the best story. Like, that's what you're always going to remember, like your first book that you published because of that story, That's just, man, that's awesome. You really went like leaps and bounds to do it. And I mean, look at you now. I mean, your current book that's out is Growler, that's currently out, which is a horror book. So tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, it's a pretty straight horror novel, like compared to Stephen King by many readers. Was nominated for an award in Germany as well. Takes place in Canada in a gold mining camp, a small one, where out of luck construction worker, he lost his job, goes there to make some money during the summertime, and he gets his wife and his kid up there. but a growler shows up. A growler is half grizzly, half polar bear, and they appear more often due to climate change. Some say not, but that is not necessarily the point of the novel. But the fact is they exist, and this particular guy is a little bit bigger than other ones. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like it. I like it.
There's also a great audiobook version that is not spoken by me. It's by Chuck Boyle in Chicago, a former radio DJ. So he spoke the Audible book version. It's just, I can just, if people listen to it,
See, I'm your target market. I love horror books. And the more scared I am, or the more like psychological twists and turns that in it, and the goriness of it. And you wouldn't pitch that. I mean, I promise I'm a really nice puppies and rainbows person. You just don't want to be in my head, because I love those like experiences. And when you read it and you don't know what's going to happen, you're just like, oh my gosh. And like the more real it is, we're like, this could totally happen. The more, for me, internally scared you get, and like aware of surroundings, you know? So I love horror authors and books, and the fact that you are compared to Stephen King, what an honor, because he is my favorite. That man writes some scary stuff. Okay.
That's pretty much was my growing up and my teenager. I read all the Stephen King novels that were out there, and then I kind of took it from there to contemporary literature and stuff.
I love that. So I have, what Mickey sent me, your press release and all your information. And so you had a movie that was based off of your novel. Which one was that?
So since more than 25 years, I dabble with other media as well. So I was a script doctor in Germany before I became a novelist as well. So for 5 years, I changed movie scripts or wrote treatments for movies, developed ideas, etc. for production companies. And so for my novels, I mentioned already my first 1 or 2 novels that I wrote that were rejected in Germany. And one of the rejection reasons for numerous editions were they were too film-like. I can see it too clearly. And I was like, then I reached actually my goal as a novelist, because that's what I want, but that was a rejection reason for 2 of my novels in the past. So I find the crossing really easy. And one of the one that I realized as a director as well, that was Derailed. It's kind of a psychological horror, if you want, so more like Kafka meets Poe, because somebody wakes up underneath a derailed train, and the high tide is coming because it happened close to the water. So and the entire movie the novel as well takes place underneath that train, right?
Wow. Okay. See, now it's on my list, because that just, I don't know. I don't like small spaces. And I can imagine being under a train is small spaces. And then you have, water that's going to come, and you're just like, I need to get out.
It's from both sides, the weight from the top and the water from the bottom, right? So it's a novella. It's So
that's awesome. I mean, the concept of that and the idea is just fascinating to me. I've never, thought of those things or gone down the avenue. And that's my favorite part about getting to interview authors like yourself. You guys are so creative in the ideas, especially horror authors, because you guys really come up with some good ways. If you do murder to kill somebody, or, to the psychological twist that you can kind of invoke and someone can feel, and the manipulation that goes into it. And to me, that's just the coolest part of the creative process. And that's why I love talking and meeting authors. You guys are just fascinating to me, and I love it. I'm here for it 100%. But when we were talking behind the scenes before we got on, we were talking about how, you are one of the best German authors, is the best way to describe it, in my opinion. So you had mentioned about how one of your books is kind of like a must read over in Germany to get, is it a literary arts degree?
It's to finish high school. So I write also young adult fiction, and so my novels are read between Denmark and Italy in all in many German schools, and I toured all these countries in Middle Europe that have German schools with my novels and did readings there, and that was a great time. Like probably more than 1,000. They are paid gigs, right? Like I know here they are not paid, the colleagues, but there it's paid. So it was one of the legs you're standing on as an author. Yeah.
See, that's awesome. So I've never met an author that has that. That's an incredible accomplishment and compliment to your writing, that it's, a mandatory to, finish in literary arts in high school. So how did that kind of come to be? Was that something that, someone just read your book and was like, yes, this is a must that everyone needs to have, and it became mandatory? Or what was that like?
Yeah, so it's called The Drone Pilot. So it's a close science fiction or near science fiction dystopian novel that is really get caught up now by current events with the war and the use of drones for border control, etc. And that I developed the idea for behind the novel is that there is an online game that the kids play all, right? But it turns out the best ones, it's basically a training video to become a drone pilot. And if you excel at that game, you get the message you want to apply because you're good enough. So, and there's this 17-year-old that says like, yeah, I won't do anything else. I'll be unemployed anyways, so I might just do it. And what do you do? It's kind of the dilemma, like, what are you doing to keep the job, although it's ethical, sometimes questionable. And I guess that struck a couple of chords with people. It was also turned into an audiobook and was nominated as one of the best audiobooks that year. So yeah, that is it's a popular one. Yeah.
Well, I can understand why. I mean, that just sounds fast. I wish I could read that. In high school, I had to read like Lord of the Flies. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a great book. It's a great book. Yeah. I watched the movie version of it in high school. But, we had to read that in like Macbeth. But I mean, to have to read, that kind of book, my love for, I guess, like literature, arts and stuff probably would have developed a little bit deeper, I would say, because it just draws you in. I mean, you really just want to read that. And I'm all about that. If I could go back and live those days, I would have recommendations here,
where I like to
change it,
Be young again? Yeah, I will take that too.
Right? Exactly. So tell us about your latest book that you have, and kind of, what else can we expect to see from you coming up?
So we Grola is out, and I would say like that is from the horror perspective. If people are more into funny stuff, it's I Am You Am I. That is a young adult fiction novel about a change of personalities between a boy and a girl, of course, and they have to live through that. And it's narrated into first person views, so we shift the character with the narration. So one chapter is him, one chapter is her. Also wonderfully read by Halliwell as on Audible as well, an audiobook. Somebody read it in, and it's really fantastic as an audiobook. She did a great way with the voices to alternate the voices between the two of them. And so those are the two, like, depending how you feel, you could look into. And I personally just finished end of last year a novel that I got a writing grant from the province where I'm living in Alberta, from the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. And I'm currently looking for agents and or publishing houses, because I'm not yet so connected here on the continent as I was in Germany, obviously.
Right. No, that I understand, but you have done some amazing things, kind of just taking that leap and making time to write because you really enjoy it. And you've done some amazing things and had some amazing accomplishments. And I am excited. I'm going to go get your books because I'm excited to read these, and especially to listen to them. And the fact that you have audiobooks really feeds into my lifestyle at the moment. Like I said, I have a 3 and a 2-year-old, so It's chaotic. So if I can listen to it, even better. But I'm excited for just getting to interview you and talk with you. I mean, this has been such an amazing conversation and insightful, and it's nice to kind of connect with someone that writes in the genre that I love, and being compared to Stephen King is just, I don't get to hear that very often. And so I'm just like in awe. I'm like, you know, starstruck over here. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So, but I know if Greg's going to be jealous, I got to do this interview. Makes me so happy for sure. But I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day, your morning, early afternoon, to come and talk with me on the conversation, and just for writing and doing your passion and what you love. Because I am a huge advocate for following your dreams and for making time to do them. And you have done leaps and bounds. Smuggling your first book in, for sure, just shows your dedication. So thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been so much
Thank you, Amy. Thank you. And greetings to Greg.
Yes, absolutely. You guys, Greg will be back tomorrow evening for the Con Hour when we're talking with Sci-Fi Con. But until then, bye, everybody.